That is what the Accra reset is about. I say by 2030, there are not going to be any raw mineral ores leaving Ghana. You're not going to ship manganese ores out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship bauxite ore out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship iron ore out of Ghana raw. You must process all that locally. Indeed, the issue of reparations and restitutive justice goes beyond, and that is in answer to the first question, just monetary compensation. It's about setting the historical record straight. It's about returning stolen artifacts from Africa. It's about the pillaging that took place in the period of the slave trade. Issues about quantum are still being researched, and I don't think that a lump sum of money is going to be taken and distributed to countries. We'll get to that point and we'll discuss that when the time comes. But for now, our aim is to put the resolution on the floor, let the world acknowledge that this happened and that there's been, in recent memory or in world history, no more grave injustice against humanity than the slave trade. 12 million people were transported, forcibly taken and transported across the Atlantic. The number of people who died in the mid-sea, the Middle Passage, is estimated at about 2 million people, either people who jumped off ships, they prefer to die than to go and live in slavery, or people who were too ill or were sick and were tossed overboard to be eaten by sharks and all that. And so that historical record must be set straight. And like I said, it's a whole movement, it's a whole story. And once we table this, we will move to the next stage of it. And so it's not about quantum for now, but there are people who have done research on what the value of the human displacement was. There are people who have done that research, but our resolution has nothing to do with quantum for now. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Cabinet colleagues have just appended my signature to give assent to the 24-hour authority bill. This is a bill Ghanaians have been waiting for. It was one of our flagship strategies for economic transformation. It's taking a while, but we needed to go patiently through the process to give legal effect to it. And so from now, we must move from strategy to implementation. The business sector is waiting, Ghanaian investors are waiting, foreign investors are waiting. They want to see the package of incentives that we afford them so that they can invest more and expand productivity and also create more employment for our young people. And so it's my pleasure to assent to this bill today. Thank you. And let me congratulate the team that has been working on it, our comrade Guzitando and his team. We're very grateful. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. As we stand at the threshold of this blessed month of Ramadan, Lordina and I extend our warmest greetings to you and your families. Ramadan is truly a special time, a month of reflection, renewal, and coming together as one community. As you begin your fast, may your hearts be purified and your imani strengthened and accepted. May Allah, the most merciful, grant you good health and peace of mind and abundant mercies throughout these 30 days of fasting. May your prayers be answered, your good deeds be accepted, and may this Ramadan month bring you closer to our Creator and to one another. As you break your fast each evening with family and friends, remember that the true beauty of Ramadan lies not just in abstaining from food, but in the discipline, compassion, and generosity we show to all, especially to those who are less fortunate than us. Let's use this holy month to strengthen the bonds of unity, love, and peace in our communities and across our beloved nation, Ghana. Recently, we've had a crisis with cocoa. It hasn't affected only Ghana. It's affected all cocoa-producing countries. And it shows how unstable raw material exports are if you don't process and add value. And that means that we must take advantage of this crisis to make a pivotal change in how we handle our raw exports. And we've exported raw beans since Gordon Gaggisberg's time. For those of you who don't know Gordon Gaggisberg, he was one of the colonial governors. And Ghana, at that time, was the leading exporter of cocoa. And to think that in the 21st century, we're still the largest leading exporter of raw cocoa beans, that is not an accolade we should take pride in. We should take pride in being the leading exporter of manufactured cocoa products. This crisis must mark a turning point in our cocoa industry. And tree crops are well positioned within this 24-hour economy framework. We will no longer export raw cashew. And so I invite our investment partners who export cashew to come and build the capacity to process our cashew locally. I want to travel and be able to buy cashew and see produce of Ghana, not produce of India or produce of some third-party country.
Through the Tree Crop Development Authority, the ministry is strengthening regulatory oversight, improving data systems, enhancing licensing and compliance mechanisms, and creating a predictable operating environment for investors and exporters. Regulation is not an obstacle to growth. It is the foundation of sustainability and investor confidence.
Problems is that to buy cocoa from our own farmers, we rely on funding from outside. And you know what the collateral for the funding is, our own cocoa beans. And so you have to collateralize the beans to the financier, buy the beans and just ship them, and they pay you the international market price. So one of the key decisions we've taken is that we're going to stop foreign funding for the purchase of our cocoa. We are going to raise domestic bonds. We have enough CDs in Ghana to pay for our cocoa. We're going to raise domestic bonds, buy our own cocoa. We don't need to collateralize the beans. I know the interesting part. We have the capacity to process 400,000 tons of those beans, processing capacity in Ghana. But because the beans are collateralized, we cannot even allocate those beans to the local processors. We have to ship all the beans outside. Now, if we buy the beans ourselves, we can take 400,000 tons out of the beans and give to our local processors to add value. That is what the Accra research is about. I say by 2030, there are not going to be any raw mineral ores leaving Ghana. You're not going to ship manganese ores out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship bauxite ore out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship iron ore out of Ghana raw. You must process all that locally. Indeed, the issue of reparations and restitutive justice goes beyond, and that is in answer to the first question, just monetary compensation. It's about setting the historical record straight. It's about returning stolen artifacts from Africa. It's about the pillaging that took place in the period of the slave trade. Issues about quantum are still being researched, and I don't think that a lump sum of money is going to be taken and distributed to countries. We'll get to that point and we'll discuss that when the time comes. But for now, our aim is to put the resolution on the floor, let the world acknowledge that this happened and that there's been, in recent memory or in world history, no more grave injustice against humanity than the slave trade. 12 million people were transported, forcibly taken and transported across the Atlantic. The number of people who died in the mid-sea, the Middle Passage, is estimated at about 2 million people, either people who jumped off ships, they prefer to die than to go and live in slavery, or people who were too ill or were sick and were tossed overboard to be eaten by sharks and all that. And so that historical record must be set straight. And like I said, it's a whole a movement, it's a whole story. And once we table this, we will move to the next stage of it. And so it's not about quantum for now, but there are people who have done research on what the value of the human displacement was. There are people who have done that research, but our resolution has nothing to do with quantum for now. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Cabinet colleagues have just appended my signature to give assent to the 24-hour authority bill. This is a bill Ghanaians have been waiting for. It was one of our flagship strategies for economic transformation. It's taking a while, but we needed to go patiently through the process to give legal effect to it. And so from now, we must move from strategy to implementation. The business sector is waiting, Ghanaian investors are waiting, foreign investors are waiting. They want to see the package of incentives that we afford them so that they can invest more and expand productivity and also create more employment for our young people. And so it's my pleasure to assent to this bill today. Thank you. And let me congratulate the team that has been working on it, our comrade Guzitando and his team. We're very grateful. Thank you very much.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Good morning and thank you very much for choosing us. This is Pan-African Television. We're live from our studios at Abelinkwe. We are live on your television sets in Ghana and across many other countries. We are also live on social media, YouTube to be specifically this morning. We are live only on YouTube, Pan-African Television. Look for the page and you can follow us live. Whilst you're following, you can share your thoughts with us on the discussions we'll be having. We're also live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. I am SENA NOMBO, and this is the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji&Alhaji. Well, this morning, we're having a couple of discussions. So, as we do always, 3 topics. First one, we'll start from what transpired at Burkina Faso that led to the killing of 8. It was a jihadist attack. The rest, the wounded, have been evacuated back to Ghana. But we lost 8 compatriots who had gone there doing, I'm sure, something that they've done consistently over a certain period of time. It happened in Titao. We're talking about that and the implications. And then we'll stay in Africa because President Mahama secured the backing of AU, the African Union, to table a motion at the UN for the transatlantic slave trade to be recognized as one of the greatest crimes against humanity. A step forward, we'll be talking about that. Then we'll move on, we'll continue with the matters of Cocoa Board. Now, this time, 2 things have happened. One, and most of it has happened at Cocoa Board. Salaries have been cut, 10% for those who are senior staff, 20% for those who are in management, executive management. Then, of course, there is the board. They announced yesterday that they are waiving sitting allowances. Adequate enough? What needs to happen to Cocoa Board in the midst of the current discussions around the cocoa sector? So those are the issues we'll be discussing this morning on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji&Alhaji. Well, this morning we are delighted to have in the studio once again. Last week we really missed him. Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, is back. And of course, sitting by him is someone I haven't seen in a while. The last time we were trying to get him on the show, he was campaigning. He had moved up north and stationed himself there to do one thing, to make sure the MPP is proudly connected. Well, the delegates thought otherwise. They wanted Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So it's nice to see Muji Brahman. Good morning. I hope you're well.
Fine.
And Ramadan Karim to you.
Thank you.
Yes, may Allah listen to your prayers.
And accept our prayers. Amen.
And sitting to my immediate left,
the troubled one.
Yes, Mr. Solomon Owusu, who is Director of Communications for the United Party. Simply put, UP+. Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah, and good morning to my brother Mujib. It's good to have him back, having been beaten squarely at the polls. I want to assure him that the only serious political party left for him is the United Party, and I welcome him wholeheartedly to come and join the party. And let's move on.
Well, like I said, the panel of 4, Honorable Alassane S. Suhini, who is no stranger to the show, will join us in studio. He's now Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways. He's been host of this show, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, and now he's a Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, so he must deliver the roads. Well, he'll be joining us to complete our panel today. And of course, this morning, let me just start by saying that as we sit in the studio, Lawyer Beatrice Annan, who had become a very quite familiar face on the show, is laying her father to rest. So our condolences to her. Well, let's start with what has happened in Burkina Faso. Like I said, for many of them, if you listen to the narrative, these are traders who have plied that road and have been to that market on many occasions. But this time around, 8 lives were lost. Some were even burnt beyond recognition. So we'll talk about that and the implications. The Sahel region, do we need to finally do something? And I'll start from my left with Solomon Owusu.
Yes, Sarah, good morning to you and good morning to Mr. Pratt. Last week I wasn't here, he was also here.
Yes.
So,
It's in fact all three of you.
yes, and then to my brother Mujib, and let me also associate myself with the condolence that you extended to Beatrice Anna, who has been a regular panelist on this show as she buries the father. I mean, it's the reason why I'm even in black, that from here I also pass by and then pay my last respect. Though since she went into government, I've never cited her. These people who comes here and they go into government, they must be very careful. You become appointees and all of a sudden we don't see you. So he is one of them. He's coming. I hope he comes.
He will come.
Oh, he has been doing better. I mean, I've not been seeing him anyway. So it means your show has produced a lot of government appointees. Yes. So you are doing well. Mr. Pratt is doing well. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. As for them, they have never cited eyes on them. It's been a long time. Senna, the situation, let me also say that together on behalf of my political party, the United Party, wish to extend our condolences to the 8 Ghanaians that so far have lost their lives in Burkina. The report suggests that they have been burnt beyond recognition, and it's so sad that women that decided to go and buy tomatoes and bring it to Ghana for all of us to enjoy our various food, be it soup or stew, have to die in such a manner. It's rather unfortunate. But you see, he said they were killed by who? Jihadists. Most often, I get confused when I hear that term jihad, or people that engage in that act jihad as jihadists. Because to my mind, jihad is to struggle in the path of God, referring to your personal, spiritual, and social effort to live a moral life. A moral life. So if their intention was to live or is to live a moral life, that is those that carried out these atrocities, and to struggle in the path of God, then how does killing innocent women, and there are also men who have nothing to do with any political situation in Burkina, amount to jihad? Then it means it's total waste of their time and total waste of our time. But those that engage in such acts, they must not want that death is inevitable. We all of us will die. So you fast tracking someone's death does not give you any advantage. You're only postponing yours. Or in fact, you're only leading them to go and settle faster than you. And they are cowards. It's only cowards who engage in such acts. Well, what is it that you are seeking that you cannot use persuasive skill to do, rather than to take the lives of innocent people? So for that, or to that end, I believe that they must bow their heads in shame. And I'm wondering why a religion allows them to be using their name to be doing this. It must be condemned. Because I don't believe that Islam endorses what they have done. I am yet to hear. So under no circumstance must any religion allow its religion to be manipulated in such a manner by people who are only there just to carry out their own activity and not on behalf of any religious grouping. Now, I have said it here, especially on this platform. The very day the United States of America decided to enter Nigeria with the view of dealing with Boko Haram, that if people in the figment of their own imagination thinks that the United States of America is so caring, they love Africa that much, they love us more than ourselves, then we are new in this world. Because if the United States of America loved Africa in particular that much, remember it took the United States of America to on land to Europe almost $13.5 billion in the 40s to rebuild Europe. What they term the Marshall Plan. It is the reason why Europe has developed as it is today. How much does Africa need to develop? Currently, they have expended or contributed more than $100 billion to Ukraine for them to be fighting Russia. What is Africa's problem? Is it not poverty? It is purely poverty. So if the United States of America strongly believes that they love us, they will not go and spend more than $100 billion in Ukraine and only bring troops here to say they want to deal with Boko Haram. Guess what? You cannot take away the United States of America from France because they all belong to NATO. Now these countries that have separated themselves from ECOWAS, be it Burkina, be it Mali, be it Niger, be it Guinea, they were all once controlled by France. France sees themselves as losing grips on these countries, but they cannot come directly. So they have to go through a NATO member. What is going to happen now is that with the US creating the impression that they are entering the Zambezi forest to drive away Boko Haram or kill Boko Haram, they are only going to give them troops to be moving across border to be going to the Francophone countries. So do not be surprised. I'm not a prophet of doom, but SENA, in the coming months it will be very interesting. That the leaders of Burkina, Mali, Niger, Guinea must up their security. Else, they will be laughing at the wrong side of their mouth. That for me is the only intention or intent of the US moving to the so-called Zambezi, moving troops here and there to say they are dealing with Boko Haram. Have you asked yourself who have been supplying the ammunition to the Boko Haram? Because guns and ammunition do not come cheap. Who are those supplying to them? And these ammunitions, which countries are manufacturing these ammunition? It's not the United States and Russia and go. So if you decide to stop supply of these gadgets, how would they be able to fight? You are giving them tools to fight, and you are telling us back that, oh, you are going to fight. It doesn't work like that. The only reason why they are there is to create more instability and get all those people who are fighting against the French imperialists out of power so that they can come back. So that they can come back and take over the uranium that you produce. They can come back and order them to be contributing to the Central Bank of France and then be living large, whereas these people live in abject poverty. That is all that is happening. So you begin to see such things as what happened in Burkina, that 8 innocent Ghanaians. I don't want to even see them as Ghanaians, human beings. But if they were even Burkinabes that died, it still doesn't make it right. They were Nigerians that died, it doesn't make it right. Even Europeans doesn't make it right. It's human beings. Now we are told by a reckless opposition party, is Speaker on Foreign Affairs Matters, John Abu Jinapo. Is that the name?
No, that's Sammy.
They keep confusing. You say, what is here? What is here?
John is the.
Which one is it? John is where?
The energy minister.
And
Samuel is.
Fantastic. So the Samuel that made that statement, right?
He speaks for the opposition on foreign affairs.
He says the 8 people were killed because of the close association of President Mahama to Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina. And that President Mahama has been warned by security experts that his closeness to the Burkina president will cause a lot of risk or havoc to Ghana. I don't know who that security expert is. That a security expert born 9 months, conceived 9 months and being given birth to, the only reason why a terrorist organization will attack a Ghanaian, innocent Ghanaian, is that the president of the land is very close to the other country. So they were expecting President Mahama to be fighting with Ibrahim Traore. Is that how we govern ourselves? So that cannot be. That cannot be the reason. In fact, if there is anything that would rather protect Ghanaians, it is the two leaders working closely. That is the only way it will assure our citizens of their safety. Remember the tension that came between these two countries during the era of Nana Akufo-Addo. When he went and snitched, you remember the Kokosa? He met a Secretary of State of the United States. No, he's going to go. The Secretary of State of the United States is equivalent to our foreign minister here. He met him and he was gossiping. Ghana had to use the backdoor channel to go and beg the young man that we goofed. So at best, what President Mahama is doing is what is expected of any serious president. And not just there, I think he has appointed an ambassador to this Sahel region. It's a good thing because you see, people do not know that a lot of the cow legs and cow bones and so on and so forth that we eat in this country, as a matter of fact, comes from Mali. Onion comes from where? Niger. Tomato comes from Burkina, and so on and so forth. So how can you be doing business with these countries and still be fighting with them? When you know that our local production, agriculture in this part of our world, that is Ghana, though Ghana has more suitable, conducive lands than these Sahelian regions, yet they are feeding it because of our lazy attitude. And not just lazy attitude, but because of how corrupt we are as a country. Sena, you remember the issue of Palugu. You, they ask for you, you always give me the information. If it's not here, it's on radio. Good morning. We were in this country, we were told at the Public Accounts Committee that $11.9 million toppable dollars had been paid to a contractor as mobilization to what? To do the Palugu irrigation dam. So that there could be all year round farming. In terms of crop farming and so on and so forth. Look, we had the former vice president of the land, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, go on radio, a simple radio, one fine afternoon, and was asked a very simple question, so simple a question, that Mr. Vice President, what single project can you say that your government has undertaken in the entire northern region for which you will be proud of? That if today you are not more the vice president, you can beat your chest and say that, yes, we did it. Yes, we did it. Yes, we did it. He told you and I that the Palugu Dam is the single most important project that they had done. Not that they were about to do, but they had done. Only to find out that $12 million was paid. They got to Bolibamboy Junction. They shared the money. But the difficulty I have is that such a low-hanging fruit, such a daylight robbery, such a criminality has happened, and we have this administration more than a year. Nobody is coughing on it. You think we will forget about this? You want to turn it as business as usual? If we had invested in the Palugu Dam, we will be having tomato farms doing very well in a part of the world. Last week or so, I heard the president say that they are giving new seedlings, improved seedlings to farmers around the Telensi area, where the Palugu Dam is, Palugu tomato factory is. Because there is a reason why the Palugu tomato factory was sited in Telensi, in the Upper East region. Because it was believed that the Pualugu Dam will be constructed, there will be farms around that area producing to feed the factory. For several years, it has been allowed to lie fallow. The factory has been underutilized because it lacked a simple input of raw materials. That is the only reason. And you can only associate this unseriousness to corrupt nature of the Ghanaian who was given the money to go and invest in the Pualugu Dam and decided to share that booty, and you and I, we are only commenting about it. People that are supposed to take action, we are okay. We have a lot of regions that are so suitable for our tomato production in this country. Beyond the Upper East, Bonahaf was so suitable. I haven't forgotten about the popular phrase of Dr. Konadu Apraku, Akuman and Tomato. Why do you think that we had that phrase, Akuman and Tomato? Because Akumadan in the Ashanti region, in the Offensu area, is so suitable for tomato production. But we cannot limit this whole discussion to only tomatoes, because it calls to for a bigger picture of which areas or food security as a general problem. That with this that has happened, I've heard the Tomato Sellers Association say that if their people do not go to Burkina, in the coming days there will be shortage of tomatoes in the market. Why must the inability of the Ghanaian to enter the Burkina market to go and bring tomato have an effect on us when we have fertile lands? What has the Directorate of Crop Services Division of the Ministry of Agric been doing all these years? Meanwhile, every year we allocate money to them. Their role is to make sure that we develop our crop sector. They take the money and they don't do anything. I just told you that about 80% of the beef or the cotoge that you eat comes from Mali. So what it means is that should this also happen in Mali, it will move beyond tomato and it will include meat or cotoge, as you put it. What then becomes of the Ghanaian? That it means we must take our national development very serious. We must take it very serious. Other than that, we will be at the mercy of these terrorists. But you see, it does not mean that the Ghanaian authorities, in spite of this, must not do business with the Burkinabes. No, we have to. But what it then calls for is that ECOWAS must have a renewed mindset how we approach these Sahel, these countries have come together to form this Sahel region, because no single country in the sub-region can, as a matter of fact, deal with the insecurity we are experiencing. Together we fight, divided we fall. Can you imagine a West Africa with a standing army? What has prevented the entire sub-region ever since it was formed in 1975 to have that body? So we are so insecure. And which sub-region can develop without security? This is where I believe that ECOWAS must have a renewed position and attitude towards these countries. We just have to lobby them, and we also appeal to some of these countries. I have said time with that number on this platform that I don't believe in coup makers, coups. No matter how fanciful your idea is, I believe that if you want to lead a country, the best way to lead the country is to take off your military attack. Either you go and form a political party with your plan or vision, go around the country, campaign to the people. If they so believe in your ideology, they will vote for you to lead the country, but not to use the power of the barrel or gun to take power. So these Sahelian regions, these member countries must also make the effort. Be it Ibrahim Traore in Burkina, to move the country towards constitutional rule. Because the last time, there was rumor flying around that the former head of state of Burkina, Damiba, wanted to stage a comeback to topple Ibrahim Traore. Rightly so, because now they will have financiers in France to be supporting them. If you went to Burkina today and you decide to move towards the northern part of Burkina, the insurgents have taken over. How are they able to get all the accoutrement to be doing that, to be fighting the government of the day? It means they have huge sponsors that we cannot take out of our equation. So, SENA, it is a very dicey situation. I don't wish it on any Ghanaian or any humanity or any human being, but the truth of the matter is that it has happened, and once it has happened, we must go on the drawing board. I've also heard people say that because of the absence of the defense minister, that is why some of these things are happening. And I'm wondering what the defense minister would have done differently from what is currently happening. It is the prerogative of the president of the land to appoint or decide not to appoint. In fact, if the president is able to man every sector of the economy, he is the only one that we have appointed him. He only delegates some of his responsibilities to the minister. So those making that argument, it doesn't hold water. We are in 2026, for Christ's sake. The politics that was done in the early 90s must cease. And look at the forward march of the country. What it is that we must only improve on our intelligence, security intelligence gathering. We must improve on sending notices to our people, not just those going to Burkina, but those going to Mali, those going to that, and any other country that we feel that there are threats ahead. We must be receiving periodic briefings. So therefore, it calls into question the sort of briefing, because our security agencies cannot do it alone. It is the reason why Ghana has embassies and missions in most of these countries. So this morning, if I were to ask the Burkina Faso, the Ghana's ambassador to Burkina Faso, the sort of information has been sending home, has it ever been included the fact that there are risks on the road? We need to know. Are various ambassadors to various countries? Sometimes I get worried when I see a lot of ministers traveling to countries where we have ambassadors, that businesses that these ambassadors could do on our behalf so that we don't spend money. Is that what will be their business there? They are representing the president of the land on these lands. And so, matters to do, on less few occasions that you expect the president to be there or the sector minister. But by and large, these ambassadors must understand that wherever they find themselves, their jobs includes gathering intelligence on security matters back home to be feeding government, so that government can know how to fashion our policies. Not just go there and be dressing. It will not be tolerated. Now, with that said, I believe there must be a lesson, and all of us must learn out of it. I rest my case here.
Thank you very much. In fact, it's always interesting when we're having debates that we go back to Nkrumah, because when he said a standing army, only one person came to mind. But let me hear Mujib on this.
Thank you very much. The topic is what happened to our people from Ghana. It's unfortunate, and I don't think anyone would have wished that it happens. But Solomon has gone details into it. I will want to deal the other side of it. SENA, it's unfortunate, but when you look at it holistically, you come to the realization that it's just either systemic failure or leadership failure that has caused this. Coming from the just close part of the region that is close to Burkina Faso and growing up, I've seen many people that have their business links with Burkina in different areas, not only Tamantos. Even now, people still go there to buy things and come, and Burkinabés come to Ghana to buy things and go. And that has been the practice. But some of these things we see, I always laugh and say that these barriers that we are talking are just, what will I say? So now, if you have been to Upper West region, you've been to Tumu area or Hamble or the Lora area, just the river that separates Ghana from Burkina Faso. You cross the river Black Volta, you are entering Burkina Faso. You get to Hambele, when you get to Hambele, you cross the border, you are entering Burkina Faso. You get to you go and see a stone that's like a bridge that if mentioned in Nkrumah that they have, that is the border line between Ghana and Burkina, which you can walk into Burkina Faso. So I think that we are one, and trading among ourselves is very good and something that has been encouraging. We have been encouraging it, and we'll continue to do it. It has existed for a longer period of time, but that doesn't mean that not until this thing happened. There has been other issues that our mothers and brothers who are trading are experiencing, but it's only this thing that have come to the limelight for. Sorry, but why so? Is because of this activities of this I would normally call them miscreants or what. Sulu said we shouldn't use the word jihadis. No, they can just the word, and nobody will go, no Muslim will sanction it, but you can't go and arrest them and say, why are you using the word jihad? But when you go to the Islamic context, you understand the real meaning of the jihad. And people can just use certain words to cloud the faces of themselves to do their own ulterior motives and do some of these things. But it's unfortunate. So, Basina, I think that why has this happened? It's a failure. Have we failed ourselves? So long, even before this killing of these tomato traders, for that matter, 8 people from Ghana has lost their life, burned beyond recognition. Aside that, there has been activities going on there which is affecting our brothers and even affecting some of us individually. That has not brought to limelight. I hope you are getting the argument. So what is ECOWAS doing? As Solo was mentioning. So when this thing happened, and I said that we have failed our people. Because if you want to go back to why these countries said they were working out of ECOWAS, it has reasons. You think they don't know? Because if we belong to an organization that is crippled, that when you are in danger, it can save you. So what is the business doing there? So if Nkrumah could not succeed, does it mean that we should not succeed as people? That is wrong. So it calls for major. It means that, and I was worried when Sulu was mentioning. So we need external intervention, and we say we are independent. Oh man, it's so pathetic. So it means that if it happened beyond this, we found wanting. And so can't we just mobilize ourselves as a group of people within the ECOWAS area and then match up to this miscreants, this group of people? They are part of us, but their activities, we don't like it, and then we don't want what is going on, to confront them within months and bring these things to order. Can't we do it as a people, as a group called ECOWAS? Even if we don't have the standing army, but can't we bring our soldiers together? At least some few months training, they can confront these people. I hope you are getting the argument. But because that was not coming, maybe when this thing happened, I listened to Emmanuel Bombande, and I could see that we fail ourselves. I listened to him and I said, no, there's more to it underground that we are not aware of. So sometimes you just don't sit down and blame somebody for taking decisions. And I don't want to open my mouth and say Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Guinea, what they have done is justified. But when there's a reason, a compelling reasons why such decision has to be taken. SENA, I hope you are getting the argument. So this is so because we feel and it has gotten to this level, that is why we are seeing what we are seeing. We only pray and hope it doesn't continue. But SENA, I think that there's a lot in our hands as a people that we need to confront with, and confront it immediately and get it resolved. But what are we? What everybody is comfortable in your own country, and you don't care about what is happening in your neighbor's country. Just like I've explained, the proximity between Ghana, Burkina, anything that is happening there, you know, if care is not taken, it will spill into Ghana. It will spill into Ghana. So it will be in your interest to get things stabilized and peaceful in that country. So you too, you have your peace of mind. There's a saying in our language that when you see your friend beard is burning, you have to quickly find water and put it, because it will catch up with yours. So exactly what we are saying. But it's a leadership failure. It's a leadership failure. And I think that the groups we have complained. The African Union has just been sometimes we don't see, we only learn it in book. Practically, we don't see effectiveness on ground. ECOWAS, the same thing. And now, I think that at a point, people think that no, they have to take their own destiny into their level. My brother Solo, I equally don't subscribe to coup d'etats as a student of politics and democracy. But you see, it is we, the people, our leaders currently, is making the coup more functionable to we, the citizens. So now, you go, what is democracy is all about? It's all about ideas. It's all about opportunities. When you are given the opportunity and you fail the people don't need to take guns. They need to use their tongue and get you out and bring SENA with the hope that SENA might be better. But if that one is failing the people, in spite of that so many years, the people are still angry. You can't even use that one to get the people together and be, as a group, ECOWAS, and be able to put certain structures in place, like you mentioned, standing army, and be able to confront some of these things. Then you have failed the people. Today, I don't want to mention, when I started this politics after school, his soul rest in peace, former finance minister Kojo Bawurodo, for whatever reason, we became so close. But then, I wasn't even in Accra, I was in Wa. But those days, I could call him solo, he would pick, and then educating me, teaching me on some, like if there's a topic, how to go back. There was one day, he went to Burkina Faso, he was telling me the system, deliberate program they put in place in the area of this growing of tomatoes. Now, I am not surprised that it's a big market that all of us have to go and trade and come back. If we get to the north and Burkina, we only have similar environment. I hope you are, but deliberately, if they are able to do it, why can't we also do it as a people? I hope you are getting the argument. And you mentioned Palugu, which is a sad story for us as a people. It doesn't matter whether MPP was in government or NDC. It's a sad story. We should have gone past there and put strength. That factory there should have been operating and employ people and producing tomatoes for the consumption and even exporting some for the people of this country. But unfortunately, that is not the situation we are experiencing. So now, when should we get it right as a people? We seem to be getting it wrong everywhere. And you know, it's just the small unit. When you get it wrong, it extends to the major. So, if as a Ghana, we are not getting it right, and if we take the same leaders with the same ideas to ECOWAS, so why are they going to get it right? They will get it wrong. They will not get it right. They will get it wrong. And so that is where we are at the moment. So, my brother, I think we have to go back to the drawing board and think again. It is very, very important. Today, maybe Traore came through not elections, but go there, a majority of the people of Burkina Faso are happy with what is happening. I hope you are getting the argument. So it's about developing the country. I've read somewhere about how many kilometers after independence of roads that were tied in Burkina Faso as compared way back. And the guy promised the people of Burkina, then I'm taking it 3 times every year to tie roads for the people of Burkina. So now I read somewhere in Kinshasa, the Denzire, it was deliberate for Mobutu not to tie roads for the people because he doesn't want to link up the country for the people to see what was happening. The only time to travel from a region to region is by air. But because of poverty, how many people could do that? So sometimes you just have to, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But I think that if we are not careful, I think things are getting out of hand. Things are getting out of hand. If this small group of jihadists have now become a problem for us within this, our area. So now we could see what is happening. And you know, if the external forces are coming, they have their interests. They have their interests. We all saw what they did in Libya. They have their interests. They have their interests. But sometimes we should be able, as an African, as an ECOWAS group, to be able to confront some of them. It's good that you are fighting and, oh, if the person decides to help you, fine. But you just don't fold your hands because you are incapable. With that external, I can't do anything. Then it means, what is your existence for? Why? Why? So simply because of that mass, people stop trading. Some of us were taken to school because our mothers traders, and where they can get things cheap, they go there to buy, bring it to town and sell, make their profit, and then pay your school fees. That is where we are today. And that one, you can't stop it. What we should be fighting, and we are fighting, is the opportunity, the environment created, so that people can go about their normal duties. These artificial borders, I think that shouldn't be a barrier. Shouldn't be a barrier preventing people. We all, at a point, I used to go to Burkina, buy these materials, come back to Ghana and sell. We did it at a point in our life, and people are still doing it today. So Sina, it's a leadership failure. It's a leadership failure, and that is the prices we are paying. And if care is not taken, Sina, and I think that things will get out of hand. But we don't pray. But you don't only pray, you act towards it to get things done. And what are our leaders doing? What are our leaders doing? After so many years of independence, you just left, right, center, even, oh man, stop it. Production, everything, as Uncle Kusu Prado say, even toothpick, we still import. You see, so now, sometimes you take certain decisions, people don't understand. I have taken time to analyze the northern sector of Ghana. And because of the distance, no independent investor, after landing in Accra and looking at the distance, hours you use from Accra to Tamale, Accra to Wa, we want to send his money deliberate to go and invest there. Unless central government deliberate policy to get things there, especially siting of factories and companies and other things. So sometimes when you get an individual who is committed, in spite of all this, to do it, why wouldn't you support the person? You have been to them, you have been there. So you could see, and if you travel by road, especially now that the roads are bad, you see that you don't 17 hours from Wa to Accra. You take bus 5 o'clock, it takes us 5 p.m. in the evening, and it gets to Accra 12:30 noon. You have no option. That is VIP. And now flight is, I think, above 2,000 Ghana cedi. Averagely, how many people can afford that? I hope you are getting the argument. So if government is not doing it, so what do you expect the people there to do? So now we still have a long way to go. But sometimes me and look, my brother, I must be very sincere with you. It is getting to a point, this is your 4-year political cycle. I said that cannot be a panacea to Ghana's development. We have to find a way. Nobody is saying that democracy is no good, but there are other forms that I think that. But this 4 years, Sologo, SENA come, I think that we have to relook at it. It's very, very important. Thank you, bro.
Thank you very much. Before I come to Kwame Kwesi Pratt for his thoughts, first let me remind you that is the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji&Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television, live on TV, Pan-African Television, social media, YouTube. Look for Pan-African Television. Do join us. If you want me to read your comments, please kindly add your names, because I can only see your handles when it comes to YouTube, unlike on Facebook. We are unable to broadcast on Facebook this morning. We are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We're also live on many other affiliate stations across the country. We are talking about the killing of 8 of our compatriots and the injuring of many who were found on the other side of an attack by a terrorist group in Burkina Faso. A few comments that I can quickly go through for those of you who are joining us on YouTube. This is Captain, so it's difficult to, because your handle is Captain F. Wire. 3704. So it's difficult for me to refer to, but please help me. If you want me to read your message on YouTube, just add your name. It helps. It says, good morning. My favorite two people are on the show, the legendary Kwesi Pratt and Solomon Owusu. Nana Akosia says, Solomon, I love your submission. She says these people should be jailed. And then also, Captain again comes, this is a failure on the part of our leaders. How do you go to a desert to buy tomatoes and onion? There's an Akosia who then comes back, say, thank you, Solomon, for speaking the truth. He is Blessed 89. Says, I want to know where all the dams constructed under the One Village, One Dam project are. And Akosia agrees, yes, where are the dams? Those are some of the policies being referred to. Honorable Sweeney has joined us, but I don't know if I can take you before him. Yes. So please kindly do as honest. Thank you.
Well, there has been an attack, and the attack happened in Burkina Faso. 8 Ghanaians have lost their lives, and several others have been injured. And the report we have is that those who were killed and those who were injured were involved in trading in tomatoes. That for some time now, Ghana has had to rely on other countries for the supply of its food, not just tomatoes. We've had to rely on Niger for the supply of onions. Indeed, there are reports which indicate that Ghana is the 3rd largest importer of tomato paste from Germany. There are other stories. We have come to the stage where today Ghana is not just importing chicken from Europe, we are actually importing guinea fowls from Denmark and so on. That's our situation. I'm told, for example, that we are importing contomere from La Côte d'Ivoire. There was a time recently when Ghana was actually importing plantain and so on. This is our situation. Now, I'm unable to understand why a tropical country like Ghana has to depend on semi-desert countries for the supply of food. I cannot understand it. In fact, this is the clearest indication that our agriculture is failing or has failed. And I say this in the full knowledge that in the 1970s, under General Kutu Acheampong, who came to power through a coup d'etat, who did not go to Harvard, who did not go to Oxford, who had no certificate in agriculture, Ghana became self-sufficient in food production. And more than that, Ghana became a net exporter of food to many other African countries. So what happened after 1979? What happened to the Operation Feed Yourself program? What happened to the Operation Feed Your Industries program? These are important questions that we need, to ask. Recently, I raised these issues, and somebody tried to rebut. And the person's claim is that Ghana produces, in terms of tonnage, more tomatoes than Burkina Faso. And I laughed. It is not about the tonnage that we produce. It is about meeting the demands of the people. One, Ghana has a far bigger population than Burkina Faso. You understand? Ghana has a far bigger population than Burkina Faso. The point is that Burkina Faso is able to produce more than enough for its people, and therefore is able to export some of its tomatoes to Ghana. Now, I go back even beyond the Achampon era to the Nkrumah era. Under Nkrumah, we produced so much tomatoes that it became necessary to preserve some of the tomatoes for export and also for use in moments where we could not produce enough. And that is why the Nkrumah government established a tomato factory. What happened to that tomato factory? How did it collapse? How come that we've not been able to revive it over the years? And so these are important questions demanding answers. We also do know that a dam was built purposely to facilitate the cultivation of tomatoes, vegetables, and others, towards the Sandema area. We know that as a fact. What happened to that project? And indeed, one of our listeners sent a text message asking what happened to the One Village, One Dam project, which was one of the promises that the erstwhile Akufo-Addo government made, and which is used in campaigning to come to power. What happened? Can you point to even one of those dams which has been constructed, which is providing water for irrigation and so on? You can't point to even one. We need to go back to the drawing board, and we need to take steps to improve national agriculture. Now, when we talk about improving national agriculture, they're not just talking about tomatoes and onions and so on. What happened to aquaculture? You have the Akosombo River, which flows all the way from Burkina Faso into the sea. Look at this country and how it is crisscrossed with all kinds of rivers, and Cobra, Tano, and so on. And then on the south, we are bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. And yet this country is dependent on the importation of fish. So you ask us, what kind of leaders have we had all these years? What kind of leaders has Ghana had all these years? How can Ghana be reliant on the importation of fish? We are bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. The whole country is crisscrossed with rivers. Even landlocked countries manage to produce fish. So it is unbelievable. I mean, sometimes you wonder whether it is the laziness of our leaders. Sometimes you wonder whether their brain doesn't work well. You can't understand why we are in this state. But that is one side of the problem. The other side of the problem is that we do know, as fact, that terrorists have been active in our sub-region. These terrorists are not just acting in the Sahel states. These terrorists have attacked the northern part of Benin. They have attacked Togo. They have attacked La Côte d'Ivoire. And there are indications that they are building their infrastructure in Ghana. We've known this for many years. It is not new. Now, one of the reactions which has really shocked me is the claim by spokespersons of the New Patriotic Party that this jihadist attack took place because President Mahama has friendly relations with President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. And it's shocking. Because the terrorists have not attacked Ghana yet. They have attacked Benin, which has very hostile relations with Burkina Faso. They have attacked La Côte d'Ivoire, which the Burkinabés say has been plotting acts of subversion against Burkina Faso. Indeed, as we speak now, the last coup attempt against President Ibrahim Traoré, the Burkinabés claim, was organized and financed by La Côte d'Ivoire. As we speak, the leader of the coup, Damiba, has been extradited to Burkina Faso, and sources say he is singing like a canary bird. You understand? So, if these terrorists attack friends of only friends of Ibrahim Traoré, why did they attack La Côte d'Ivoire? Why did they attack Togo? Why did they attack Benin? That claim simply doesn't make any sense at all. And my advice to the New Patriotic Party is a very simple one. You see, they should not assume that the 35 million citizens of Ghana are just yo-yos, and that they can come and tell them any story. We are capable of thinking. We are capable of some analysis and so on. Besides, all of you on this table, 4 of you, is there any one of you which has not heard the account by security experts from Ghana and Burkina Faso that this is not the first terrorist attack, and that in the last attack before this one, when the terrorists got to know that some of their victims were Ghanaians, they allowed them to go? Haven't you heard that story? So, where from the claim that the terrorists attacked and killed Ghanaian traders because of the relationship that has developed between Ghana and Burkina Faso? It's a very strange claim, and I think it should be dismissed with utmost contempt. It has no merit. It should not be entertained at all. Then from the same stable, New Patriotic Party has come another story. And the story is that these attacks could have been avoided if we had a defense minister. SENA, how are these people thinking? How do they do the analysis? In the first place, the defense ministry is not vacant. As we speak, there's a deputy defense minister. And in fact, from all the reports that I'm getting, from conversations with soldiers and so on, this deputy defense minister is a gem. What's his name? Broja Jinfi and so on. I mean, the soldiers speak about his modesty, the way he so easily relates to them and so on. He's working and he's doing well. In fact, I've been wondering why he has not been confirmed as defense minister, given all the reports that we are all hearing about him. You understand? I've been just wondering why. But that is for President Muhammad to deal with. It's not for me. I don't make appointments. I have no influence and so on. But the point is, if you have a deputy defense minister that the soldiers appear to be happy with, whose comportment is excellent and so on, why the wait? In any case, he's not the only person at post. There's an acting defense minister. You understand? And then, above all, why? All the ministers, in whatever ministry, act on behalf of the president. So effectively, the president is in charge of all the ministries. It is because he's a human being and does not have tentacles and so on. It is because he's a human being and has limitations and so on that he appoints his representatives to work for him in the different ministries as ministers who report directly to him and take instructions from him. I'm quite sure that President Muhammad's focus is still on the Ministry of Defense. In any case, What is the link between this attack and the absence of a minister? If you had a minister of defense, would he have been on the trucks who took the women to Burkina Faso bearing an automatic weapon or what? I mean, if there was a minister of defense, would he have deployed escorts? How does the absence of a minister of defense find expression in this terrorist attack on a woman? I don't understand. And Mujib, please advise your communicators and leaders, please, for your own sake and the sake of your party, advise them. Some of the statements they make, I mean, really, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. You begin to wonder, are these people going to seek our mandate? Do they intend to seek our mandate? Some of the statements they make, unbelievable. But they hold press conferences, and the media goes there anyway, sometimes for entertainment. The absence of a defense minister led to the terrorist attack. Blame the president. Hey, but you see, that's also another matter. Let's put it aside. The other dimension of this, and I have seen a police intelligence report. It was published. I'm sure some of you read it. A police intelligence report, authentic police intelligence report, which says that these terrorists operating in the Sahel have sleeping cells in Ghana, and that the sleeping cells in Ghana spread all the way from the border with Burkina Faso down to Salaga. So we know this. Are we waiting for the sleeping cells to wake up before we act? And if we know that they are sleeping cells, we must know who are operating the sleeping cells. We must know something about their location and so on. When are we going to take decisive action in order to eliminate these sleeping cells and so on? But that is not even all. A couple of years ago, in Syria, amongst the terrorists operating in Syria, who have links to the terrorists operating in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, was a Ghanaian. You remember that story? A Ghanaian jihadist, okay, who was recruited from Ghana, who was actually participating in the atrocities, committing atrocities in Syria, and so on. Okay? There is some credible information today, as we speak, in this studio, that many young people across our borders, many unemployed, frustrated people, are enlisting to fight with the terrorists because the pay, they say, is good. They are paid in dollars. Okay? Now these Ghanaians, if it is true, who are fighting with these terrorists, are from here. Our borders are so porous, it's unbelievable. I mean, I think it was Mujib who was talking about the porosity of our borders. I've been across some of these borders. You see, Lepe in the Volta region. I was in Lepe in the Volta region, on the mountains. I walked. I was in Togo. I didn't know that I had crossed any border. I was just walking, found myself in Togo. There was no indication that I had crossed any border. That is how porous our borders are. And there's this story that I tell everybody. If you go to our borders, especially the Aflao-Lome border, the Ghana-Togo border, you find one house. The bathroom is in Ghana, the kitchen is in Togo. These are the borders we inherited from colonialism. Okay? So, this terrorists move in and out on a daily basis. You can't control them and so on. It's a very difficult terrain and so on. So we need to up our game in order to be able to prevent these attacks in the Sahel, which most likely would extend to Ghana and which have already extended to other West African countries. We need to up our game. What is the game plan? It's an important question to ask now. There is another issue which is, some say, controversial. I don't think it is that controversial. Some say it's controversial. But the facts speak for themselves. Last year or 2 years ago, there was a terrorist attack in Mali targeting Russian and Malian soldiers. And a number of Russian soldiers were killed in that attack. Ukraine. The Ukraine intelligence claimed credit for that terrorist attack. Ukraine claimed credit publicly. And the Ukrainian intelligence justified their involvement in those terrorist attacks by saying that they were at war with Russia, and therefore it is legitimate for Ukrainian forces to attack Russian forces everywhere and anywhere and to assist those fighting against Russia everywhere and anywhere. My goodness. Doesn't that raise some issues about the war in Ukraine? Haven't we been told that one of the justifications for the war in Ukraine is the fact that fascists were building forces up in Ukraine for an eventual attack on Russia? You haven't heard about the Azov battalion and so on. So if Ukraine now publicly claims that it is in cohorts with terrorists in West Africa and they are fighting in the Sahel, doesn't it give credibility to the allegation that fascists and terrorists were massing up in Ukraine? And in any case, what is the reaction of our leaders in the sub-region to this deliberate, provocative affront from Ukraine? What is our reaction? And then you hear that the Ukrainian president is in contact with Ghanaian officials and they are discussing the possibility of establishing a drones factory in Ghana and border patrol. Are you not alarmed? Should we tolerate this? What will the drones be used for? Ukraine, which is fighting against Mali. Ukraine, which is fighting against Burkina Faso. Ukraine, which is subverting the Niger government. How can it be engaged in border patrol in Ghana? And I'm ashamed. So our foreign policy must be aligned to our regional interest and our domestic interest. It is important to align our foreign policy properly. You understand? Now, was it last week or so? There was this ridiculous story that French troops have arrived in Ghana to assist us to fight Galamsey. What do French troops know about Galamsey? Who should be teaching who about the fight against Galamsey? French troops teaching us, or we teaching them about Galamsey? Ridiculous in the extreme. And we know, or at least it is rumored, that the French are active in the terrorist campaign against governments and countries in West Africa. Why do we tolerate them? At least, at the very least, there are strong suggestions that the United States of America and its armed forces are also engaged in subversive activities in West Africa. And yet we have allowed them to establish a forward operating base in Ghana. How does that make sense? You see, there is this fancy proverb which says that when your neighbor's beard is on fire, if you're a wise person, you quickly fetch water and put your beard in the water before the fire gets close. You put your beard in the water straight away. It's an old fancy proverb. It should guide our leaders. You understand? In any case, the reason why many countries in West Africa don't want to have anything to do with the Burkinabes, the Nigerians, and the Malians is that their governments are coup governments. Listen to them. Their governments are coup governments. So they will not have anything to do with them. Is that a sensible policy to take? First of all, the ECOWAS that they belong to, they are using to sanction these countries and so on, was established by military regimes. At the time of the establishment of ECOWAS, the vast majority of governments in West Africa were military regimes. The tradition of ECOWAS itself was established by military regimes. In any case, this glorification of civilian regimes, so-called civilian democratic regimes, does it include Ouattara's government? Is Ouattara's government one of the democratic civilian regimes? Ouattara, is his government democratic? What about that guy in Benin, Talon? Talon's government is democratic? We should stop the joke. We should stop the joke. Why? All of us know how most, if not all, of these so-called democratically elected civilian governments come to power. We know the election rigging machines they employ. We know how this democracy has become, festering grounds for monetization of politics and so on. Don't we know that? Why are we engaged in this pretension? I am making this point because I think the time has come for all of our governments and people to collaborate to bring an end to this terrorist scourge in our region. Because if we don't collaborate now to bring an end to this terrorist scourge in our region, very soon, no country will be spared terrorist attacks in the sub-region. And that's why we have to work now, serious work. That is how we have to integrate our armed forces in order to deal with this threat. And we should not forget that long ago, in the 1950s and 1960s, Kwame Nkrumah of blessed memory called for the establishment of the African High Command. The integration of African armed forces to deal with common threats. The time has come to listen to Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and the prescriptions he had for protecting Africa from these attacks and so on. SENA, there's a little bit of recent history which is important. You see, if you look at the Sahel and you look at the instability, the wars and so on, you cannot help but blame those responsible for the overthrow of the Gaddafi government for some of what is happening today. One of the principal actors in these conflicts is the Azawad, the National Liberation Army of Azawad. How did it come about? These were fighters in Libya, and as a result of the insecurity which occurred in Libya and so on, they moved south with heavy weapons. Heavy weapons that even the national armies did not have and so on. They moved down with those heavy weapons and decided to establish the independent Republic of Azawad. Okay? They have been active in Mali. They are part of the insurgency in Mali. How do you deal with the Azawad liberation movement? Do we facilitate dialogue between the Malian government and the Azawad liberation movement? Do we take a position against the Azawad liberation movement? What do we do? The Algerians over the years have tried to serve as a mediation force between the Malian government and the Azawad liberation movement. They have failed. They claim that it is because of lack of cooperation from the Malians. The Malians claim that Algeria is assisting the Azawad liberation movement and so on. It's a mess. But why should we leave it to Algeria? If ECOWAS is worth its salt, if ECOWAS is worth its name, why is ECOWAS not interested in getting involved in Mali and ending this insurgency by the Azawad liberation movement? What is happening? Listen, so there are so many dimensions to this issue, and I think it is important for us to take all of them on board in order to build a West Africa that is free from terrorism. To build a new West Africa in which people, goods and services and people can move across so easily, freely, and so on. To build a new West Africa which gets rid of despots. Despots. A new West Africa in which the behavior of Alassane Ouattara will be condemned. Our leaders pretend to believe in democracy and so on. And yet when Alassane Ouattara constantly declares himself president, all of them troop to his inauguration and they go to salute him for doing a good job. Is that an indication of commitment to democracy? Going to Alassane Ouattara's inauguration and saluting him and praising him and so on, is that an indication of commitment to democracy? I'm embarrassed sometimes by the leaders of West Africa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll move to another Alassane, but not the one we're talking about.
Alassane is Alassane.
I'll move to you, but before that, this is by way of information. What Comrade Prado was talking about. This is the BBC reporting on 5th August 2024. Mali says it has cut diplomatic relations with Ukraine after a military official suggested Kiev had played a role in deadly fighting near the Algerian border last month. Dozens of Malian soldiers and mercenaries from Russia's Wagner group were killed in days of clashes with Tuareg separatist rebels and fighters linked to Al-Qaeda. Andrea Yusov, a spokesman for the Ukrainian military intelligence, said last week that the rebels had been given, quote, the necessary information to conduct the attacks. So, anyway, yeah, that's the BBC. It's a BBC report. Anyway, one of the things also to note that in Nigeria, the president is also Minister for Petroleum. So the president can be Minister for Defense. He can choose, and he's also the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. Anyway, so
yes. First of all, my sincere apologies to you and our viewers and listeners for my late arrival.
It didn't destroy anything.
Yeah.
The program started on time.
Yes.
Come at the right time. You are participating.
Yes, but he announced it. That's why if he had not, I wouldn't have bothered. Yes, he announced that I was late.
Was empty, so
let's be honest.
Yes.
To get a sitting minister coming all the way to participate in this program is an honor for us, the station, and the viewers.
Thank
you.
you.
We are grateful that you came.
Thank you. One of our colleagues on the panel, Beatrice Sanan, I heard you talk about it, is laying the father to rest today, and it's on my way. And I have another event after this program, so I thought it was better to stop there and condole with her before coming. But I've been listening. I heard Solo and the mischief that he started with. I heard Rahman and Co. So it's been very educating as usual. And let me start by extending heartfelt condolences to the family of the 8 victims who unfortunately got killed in Burkina Faso as a result of this terrorist activities. and also say that I agree again with Solo when he says that I am uncomfortable when they are referred to as jihadists, but that's what internationally they are referred to, but it carries a wrong, connotation of the term jihad, and I think that on another platform we can have that education. But I agree that they are terrorists, and I think that we need to understand. Uncle Kwesi has taken us through the history of the destabilization of the Sahelian region, part of it, talking about the fall of Gaddafi, the Tuareg, the Mali in 2012, and how it destabilized the whole Sahelian region. And you need to understand that in a state of conflict, the opposing parties, especially those that are not in charge of the state, will be doing everything possible to undermine the authority of the state. Because that is how they show their presence and their influence. And whatever they can do to signal or indicate the lack of control, of the state, they will do it. And one of the ways to deal with opponents in a conflict, we are all told, is to disrupt trade routes, destabilize the economy, so to speak. And when the people are hungry, and you are perhaps better resource, you will be able to make a headway. And so it shouldn't come to anybody as a surprise that traders in Burkina Faso, once the insurgency began, were always going to be at risk of being attacked, especially by these terrorists, to send a message across. It's always been, on the drawing board. It's always been the case that it was possible that traders were going to be targeted, and that is why the attempt to politicize this has actually brought to the fore a number of reported attacks in the past that perhaps didn't get to this level, or not even this level, because the other day, I think 2 days ago, I was listening to the majority leader in parliament, Honorable Mahama Yarga, and he spoke of how some of the constituents were killed, and he actually even revealed something quite telling: the fact that some of these neighbors crossed into Ghana to access Ghanaian identity cards because of the ability to access some of our services, and some of them were even parts of these insurgent groups. And so when they were killed and then they are searched, they sometimes find Ghanaian identities on them, and they had the wrong notion that some of the fighters may have even been from Ghana and all of that. So you should know that this instability in that region has always been a threat to not only the traders, but also even to towns that border Burkina Faso. And how best could Ghana have insulated itself? I mean, by choosing the path of isolation, or by choosing the path of inclusion, where you develop bilateral relations with the state as it currently exists. Whether you like it or not, there is still a state Burkina Faso. And so, how better to deal with the threat to your trade, your citizens who will trade in Burkina Faso by all means, and your citizens who live on the border? How better to isolate or to pursue a path of inclusion by developing bilateral relations and deepening confidence between Ghana and the state of Burkina Faso? That's what I'm saying. Whether you recognize it or not, it remains a sovereign nation with, a body in charge. And in this case, could we have been dealing with the rebels? No. And if our previous government decided to choose the path of isolation and snitching, and I like that word, I mean, it rather put all of us at risk. Can you imagine that this threat that has finally been reported, leading to the loss of about 8 lives, can you imagine if it had happened at the time that our government was snitching? How would we have even reached out to the Burkinabe government for cooperation to even bring back those who were injured? And that should tell you the wisdom behind the decision of President Mahama, not only to engage with these neighbors of ours, but to also pursue a path of returning them to ECOWAS. We must see the vision, you know, and the future implications of that decision that he has taken. I mean, clearly, like I said, border towns were all at risk, and it has always been a threat. And the path that has been chosen by President Mahama to ensure that we work together with the government of Burkina Faso and the other Sahelian countries couldn't have been a mistake at all. We need to encourage that more. And it is sad that our opponents in opposition think that this unfortunate death should be a reason for them to you know, revive their fallen political fortunes. It's not going to happen. I mean, the people of Ghana are well aware of what this current government inherited in terms of not just the economy, but even in terms of the state of the security situation that was handed over to them. And they appreciate the steps that are being taken to ensure that the state of Ghana is better, you know, secured, and we are all at peace. Now, I am quite sad, Sana, by watching some of the videos of especially relations of these people, and I think there is something there for us. I commend His Excellency President Mahama for the swiftness with which he arranged the evacuation of those who were injured, and also quickly went to visit the patients in hospital. Many other government appointees have since done that. I commend that. But you see, Sena, I sit and I think that we can still do more. We can perhaps, if possible, yield to request of some of these families that, even if it is just cosmetic, you know, who wants the bodies of their victims buried here in Ghana? I mean, it's the least we can do for them at this stage. I think that we should not ignore that request of families that want the bodies. And you know why I think it is important, Sana? Only last year, the state was in mourning. We lost people in government. We did everything possible to get the bodies of our compatriots to their families, to bury them. The whole state of Ghana mourned with the government, and those of us considered privilege. The market woman, I mean, people took their cameras to the market, and you could tell that the whole state was in mourning. That common trader, I'm sure, was also in mourning with the state. It is time for the state to mourn with the ordinary person and to do everything possible to, you know, you cannot bring back the life of those who have been taken so brutally. But at least you can, through your actions and your deeds, provide some level of if you like, comfort to the family who is still alive and agonizing and in pain. So I will urge, and I'm sure that it is under consideration, that it is fast-tracked so that where it is possible, we can exhume the bodies we are told they have been buried and flown to Ghana, just like we flew in some cases the remains of some of our compatriots abroad to verify everything. For me, that actually defines or gives sense to the definition of democracy. Government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And again, it tells you what your state can do for you. And you don't have to be a minister of state or a government appointee for your state to go that extra mile for you. And so I think that we should do everything possible to meet that request and to console the families better. Now, this has also brought about the conversation of what the traders were doing in Burkina Faso in the first place. What they went seeking, couldn't they have had in Ghana? And the answer is they could have. They could have had it in Ghana. And when the debate was being had in Parliament, I was excited by the point made by Honorable Samuel Atta-Mills, who said that yes, it's okay. It's not okay to play politics with it. But if that is what you want, then we'll remind you that when you were in power, your government spent over $12 million. And even when your flag bearer was asked what his greatest contribution to the North was, he said the construction of the Kwaulugu Dam. But when you go there, you wouldn't even get a $1 million project. Nothing is on the ground. But what it was the Kwaulugu Dam supposed to do? It was supposed to support irrigation farming, especially the cultivation of vegetables. And perhaps if we had that dam, perhaps the traders wouldn't have had to cross the border into Burkina Faso. Maybe farmers would have been farming tomato, because the land supports the cultivation of tomato. And under Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, we even had Ghana's tomato processing factory in that enclave. And so perhaps, so I was very happy with the response that he gave, that look, this is a national tragedy, this is a national disaster, this is not something that we are wholly in control of, because the instability in that part of the West African region is not something that we can control. But the need to trade among ourselves is also something that we cannot curtail. And so, even though that threat has always been there since the insurgency, we have over the years perhaps managed and prayed and put things in place to avert any such attacks. But once that possibility existed, if it happens, it becomes unfair or unreasonable to suggest that it's as a result of somebody's negligence or recklessness. If we are going to, go that route, then we will drill down the negligence all the way down to why the Kwaulugu factory, dam was not done, because that's all part of the negligence. But also interesting part of this conversation, SENA, I hear the question, and I think Angwesi also asked the question. Early this week, I heard on radio a gentleman also very upset about how, what is wrong with our leaders. I hear that all the time. What's wrong with our leaders, especially in relation, and it's a very relevant question, because even at some point in time, I've asked that question myself, and I don't think I'll stop asking that question. But when it comes to certain specific topics, like the issue of production of, say, vegetables and of rice, and that question is asked, I will wish that we expand it to include what is wrong with our leaders and our citizens. Because you see, when you look at the dams that we have already in the north, you have the Tano Dam that is currently being managed by ICOR, and I'm told that it can cultivate up to about 2,490 hectares of land, and you can produce rice and vegetables there. the question that we should be asking ourselves is, has it been provided with support of the state? Yes. How many of us are taking advantage of that? Or is it the state that should go again and do the farming of the tomato? So those are some of the, that's why when I say when it comes to this specific topic of production, the first thing is the dam must be provided by the state. Yes? Are you getting it? So when it comes to Paragu, what is wrong with our leaders? Because it's been on the drawing table for a very long time, and yet our leaders have not been able to provide that. But when you go to Tano, then that question of what is wrong with our leaders will no longer suffice if you don't include what is wrong with us also as citizens. Because are we really taking advantage of the dam that exists at Tano to produce enough to feed ourselves? Are we taking advantage of the Tamni Dam, the Bontanga Dam, and the Pong irrigation that has also just been revamped? It is up to us. And I said early this week, I heard, a radio presenter talk about how we're all taught, different types of farming, cultivation, shifting cultivation and all of that. I said, yeah, I mean, and the attack was, our leaders, what is wrong? We're all taught this. Why are we not practicing it? And I thought to myself, well, yeah, but it's not only the politicians and the leaders who were taught, all these farming methods. Why are we all not doing it? I mean, I've heard of backyard gardening, and Angwezi talked about the Achampong regime and how popular that was. I don't think it was only limited to, politicians, whether in opposition or in government. It was not limited to appointees. It was for all of us to take advantage where it exists and to demand of our leaders to provide the advantages where it does not exist. Are you getting the point I'm making? Let us take advantage of the opportunities where it exists and demand of our leaders to provide the advantages where they don't provide one. So in that way, I have always said that a people deserve the kind of leadership that it gets. And when you look at all these developed countries, the French Revolution and what have you, it was as a result of the people refusing mediocrity and actually not also living mediocre lives. And because of that, their leaders had to raise the bar to meet their tastes. And that is why I am very excited that this conversation has also brought about that question of, could we have, produce vegetables enough in this country to limit the appetite of our traders seeking to import them from our neighboring countries, especially when we have better, climatic conditions compared to these countries that they were traveling to. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let me just read some of the comments that are coming in on this issue before we move on to the next one. It seems we'll be in Africa for a few more minutes. There's Eriko Kono in La Paz who says, good morning. In fact, those Ghanaians that were killed at Burkina Faso by terrorists was sad and barbaric. That's Eriko who sent that. Thank you. There's a Sanko in Santa Maria. Said that, said the tried and tested government is using only 58 ministers to build what the sloganeering Somisho MPP government took about 125 ministers to destroy. So they must keep quiet. After all, what is their relevance in Ghana's politics apart from their diabolical activities against their political opponents? Asanko sent that from Santa Maria. Good morning to you. There's this one from Benjamin Adai who is jumping into our third topic. The problem of cocoa sector is very simple to solve. The problem is just two: how to buy the cocoa and how to sell the cocoa. Charlie. This says how to buy cocoa from farmers and not run into any problem is very simple. Please, I would like to meet the CEO of Cocoa Board and the Minister of Agriculture for 10 minutes. He insists that he only discloses solutions if he has the opportunity to meet. There's Kamlan Ganya who says, what are the NDC appointees doing? So up till now, they don't know how diabolical the MPP are. And they are still doing my brother, my friend with them, while they attack you at the least opportunity. A serious crime, as a Josafo impersonation case, was allowed to die away by NDC MPs after Kufuor came and jailed former NDC appointees. Atamils failed to successfully prosecute a single alleged Kufuor corrupt appointee. Haven't you learned any lessons? What is stopping the NDC from exposing the mess MPP created in various sectors? Kamala Ganya said that there's also just one, the terrorists attacking Burkina Faso. Some of our leaders are okay, they are also among. That's what you wrote. There's a book Bakari. There's a good morning. and sends warm greetings to Honorable Suhini, and remind him. Okay, I'll tell him after the show. I'll tell him after the show. And I don't think this is for. There's SB Japan, who is also joining. It's a shame for Ghana to import tomatoes and onion from Burkina Faso in spite of the fertile land that we have. Regards to you and your panelists. He sent that from the US. Thank you very much, SB Japan. This one says, Kujo from Qatar. Let's call a spade a spade. Religion cannot be separated from politics. The killings or attacks by the jihads in Burkina has political undertones. Let's be mindful of who governs Ghana. After JDM, we've seen influx of Muslims into this country. Okay, please, some of the things. There's also this one who says, terrorists in Burkina Faso are using the religion just for their parochial interest. The religion stands for peace, love, and unity. My regard to everyone. Thank you. And also, it is unfortunate we tickle ourselves and laugh. Africa doesn't need money from anywhere, because money is meant for development will end up in the pocket of few people. A country that sells recruitments, appointments, and promotions like Ghana and other African countries cannot develop irrespective of amount of money pumped into development. It is good the European countries accept that slave trade is crime against humanity. I am against and will forever be against reparation of money to compensate African nations. What is the guarantee that African nations will use the money for the intended purposes? We need to mobilize our local resources to fund our development. There's a country that spends money in renaming institutions need loans and grants to support its development. Nobody can blame our underdevelopment on other countries but ourselves. Polygu Dam couldn't come on, but monies have been spent. Yes, nobody is prosecuted. Our security could not gather intelligence about the impending danger for Ghanaians in Burkina Faso, our next door neighbor. Yet we are prioritizing changing NIB to BNI. When Akufo-Addo did that, Ghanaians complained, and NDC is also doing same. God bless Ghana. Akwesi Eduse Amofa, Mfantiman Girls Senior High School. I'm hoping you're a teacher there, because there's no way you can be a student there. There's also Mahama Abudo from WA who is joining us. Please, the situation is worrying, and the leaders must think smart. I have very high interest in tomato farming, but no capital to start with, and my dreams are going down the drain. This is Mahama Abudo who sent that. Thank you. There's Prof in Tema, who says we'll continue to rely on other countries for vegetables and other food items, so long as the youth are taking politics as an infinite occupation. We don't grow tomatoes on radio or TV studios. From morning to night, people are just jumping from one station to another. Talking will not change a Greek action. Prof sent that. Thank you. And then this one says a good morning. And a good morning. In fact, the director of United Parties, Solomon Owusu, style of submission to an issue on the table is always synonymous to Ankopra's style of communication. They are always on point and worthy to listen to their debate submissions. Thank you very much. This is Dennis Yakwete. Dennis Yakwete says, sometimes when some of our politicians talk and you believe that there's nothing wrong with your brain, you have no option than to restrain. Else, if you give the appropriate response, you'll be misconstrued. For a member of parliament to even contemplate that the relationship between His Excellency President John Mahama and Burkina Faso head of state was the reason for the death of our Ghanaian women is shameful, distasteful, despicable, and nauseating, to say the least. Indeed, I wonder if some of our politicians have spouses who guide them. We should be bowing our heads in shame. As a nation that after close to 70 years of independence, we import fresh tomatoes from a desert country, that should be the focus and not the verbal diarrhea that's coming from Dennis Yakwete. There are many more comments coming in on this particular issue. Many of you sharing your views on this, because it's led from a discussion of the security situation to even a Greek, and to also the actions that have been. The best explanation I've gotten for the polygraph, I don't know, forgotten the member of parliament I spoke to at the time, MPP member of parliament. He told me that they use it for mobilization and ground preparation. So $12 million was, and somebody sent me pictures of the ground preparation. I was wondering, maybe I don't know what $12 million can do. I have never held it in my hand before, but I was a little surprised. But so far,
I support the vision of Solomon. I think that it has to be looked at. And then those involved has to, because Mobilization and what? Only $12 million.
The mobilization that they are talking about. They said they went for a bank guarantee from Stanbic Bank. So, if we believe, and which we surely believe that they didn't do anything, we must pursue Stanbic Bank and take our money. Just like that road from, is this Sabligu to Walawali or so, that they went for $29 million guarantee that the Indian has squandered with that money. We don't respect dollar in this country at all.
And I'll come back to you to start the second topic for me. Just that I realized that Honorable Suini was so interested in the word snitch. The word snitch was considered, I don't know whether the speaker wrote on it. They said it couldn't be, so it was unparliamentary language. There's a lot of disagreement by respect of decisions because there's something else that's happening. But anyway, let me come to Solomon also, because we have been at the forefront of this. Has been President himself is Africa's champion, the EU champion on the matter of reparation. Kwame Kwesi did a fantastic book that many people have gone through. But I saw Beatrice actually displaying her copy. Apparently, she got a copy from you, duly signed. So it's a book on reparation. What we know now is that African leaders at least support one thing: the President Mahama should go to the UN, table a resolution that would ultimately declare the transatlantic slave trade as one of the biggest crimes against humanity. Well, I'll start from my left, like I said, with Solomon also.
So, reparation, and I think this topic has been on the lips of many. But SENA, this morning, let's look at the raw meaning of the word reparation before we dissect the matter and whether or not the mindset of some African leaders would help us to achieve what we really want to achieve. I mean, if you take the dictionary, it's the action of making amends for a wrong. The action of making amends for a wrong one has done by providing payment or other assistance to those who have been wronged. You want to make amends. Someone has wronged you. So the person that wronged you is either paying you in cash or in kind. Theodore Obiang, what? That president of Equatorial Guinea. Paul Biya, Yoweri Museveni, and other host of leaders are going to, on behalf of Africa, take cash to come and what? Appease, atone for the sins, or repair the damage that was done by these people. And you think it will get to the people? Paul Biya, he can't even walk, let alone talk. The first time I saw virtual campaigning, the last time he was contesting, he was not there campaigning, but people were moving his refugees around. AI generated messages, they were campaigning, yet he won by a landslide. It is a fact that Africa has been wronged. Nobody can deny that. Our people were used to develop the US, Europe, and other places. They suffered. It's the reason why a lot of our labor force, people that could have helped us to develop, or is the reason why our continent finds itself where we are. But under the current circumstances, which aspect of the reparation are we looking at? Are we looking at being paid with physical cash or what? That's what I'm very interested in. And if we are going to be paid money, based on what valuation? Can anybody put value to the sufferings of our forebears? How are we going to arrive at any determination, any amount of money that these people must pay to us? So for me, that is where the difficulty is. Somewhere in 2007, you remember Ghana did the redenomination. Yes. When we did the redenomination, what was the value of the cedi to the dollar? If I was at par, 1:1, is that not the case?
Yeah. I think at some point it started with the cedi looking stronger.
But even let's consider that it was even 1:1. It means we started at 0.0. Thinking that we will be able to maintain the status quo. At a point, the cedi was around what? 17 cedis. What it tells you is that if our idea of reparation is to get money, then we are making lives, or we are going to make lives so comfortable for those that committed those heinous crimes. Because they can give you trillions, and I can tell you, that my last person, that money will find its way back into the economy. Cost structures are here. Now you are going to give Yoweri Museveni billions of dollars to continue to perpetuate his stay in power. I believe that the resolution that will be going to the UN must let them apologize, admit that they erred. If they have any other assistance, they must come here. All of us will develop this continent together. But to directly go and give physical cash, hey! We went and borrowed $750 million from Africans to come and construct a road here. That one price alone, no. So now listen to it carefully. Loan that the country will pay back. Nsawam to Pokwase, Swami interchange, Apega to Konongo. They finished the $750 million, yet the road wasn't constructed. The country is paying back. So how much more something that is going to be free? The last week or two, we have been discussing what? Cocoa Board matters. Is that not the case? They were bold to come and tell us that $350 million has been allocated to rehabilitate 156,000 hectares of cocoa land. It's only in Ghana that we allocate monies for a project. The money will be finished. The project will not be done. People will be working freely. They feel so comfortable. And not just Ghana, across Africa. They are working about the $350 million got finished. They only did 40,000 out of the 156,000, and then no one can account for it. I am bringing all these things to let you understand that the framework within which we are operating now does not cause or call for any of the leaders to push for the idea of money, because we cannot put any value. What sort of value are you going to put on that able-bodied person who went to the United States of America to help them develop their economy? What value? What about those that were killed along the way? Those that died? Unfortunately, we will not have the opportunity of bringing, just like Mr. Pratt has always been saying, that we will not have the benefit of going to Europe and US to also bring them down here to be slaves to us, to develop our economy. That is why they must come and join us here. Mutual respect. Under no slavery mentality or conditions, we develop Africa together. The framework is not good. The corruption levels is so high. It's so high. A whole AU head office was constructed by the Chinese. It tells you how irresponsible our country has been. You, Africa, that has all these resources, you can't even build your own headquarters. You can't. We still struggle with our borders. You are moving from Ghana to Togo as if you are moving from Ghana to heaven. So difficult. You want to move from Ghana to Guinea. So difficult. So I believe that beyond the resolution, we must go back to the founding principles of what and why we formed the AU and begin to do things in the right way. Set standards for ourselves. The number of times these heads of states have met in Addis Ababa or other areas, because the last time they met was the 39th. So from the 1st to the 39th, what sort of resolutions have they made in terms of governance? We brought something we call Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that we must be trading amongst ourselves. So now go into it. We are unable to. Nigeria still trades with Brazil in terms of their salt. Look at the distance between Brazil and Nigeria, and look at the distance between Nigeria and Ghana. Why must Nigeria be buying their salt? They are not buying from us. And I know that the salt in Brazil is of quality than that of Ghana, but because of chop corruption, you are going to give money to Tinubu to develop Nigeria. I believe there has to be assistance and not money. That assistance must be in the form of training of our people. Modern ways of doing things. Let us renew or change their attitude towards working, their mentality, and that is the only way Africa can develop. Because we have everything. We have all the resources. What is left is that the mentality of the people. I mean, take a look at the young ones that are growing. We are talking, a young man sent it, I don't know whether it's a young man or somebody sent the text message that he is interested in what? Tomato farming. But he has nowhere to access what? Credit. We put up the Agricultural Development Bank. Why was it established in the first place? It was to go to the aid of such people, but go to the ADB because of corruption. They prefer in investing in people going to buy from outside. Portfolios that has nothing to do with agriculture is what they are interested in. And even when they decide to give people in farming or agri loans, go and check the interest rate, whether for the rest of their life they can pay back. As though our system is designed, they want to force us to accept that poverty is part of our life. Now, when the Ghanaian is working or the African is working, the self-actualization or self-confidence is not there. Because by and large, daily, the actions and inactions of these leaders seems to suggest that we must embrace poverty. And that is why I am not for the money at this moment. If at best, they must live with that conscience that they came and took our people. Even after all, today we are going on our own volition. Today we are doing proper slavery. Is that not the case? Every morning, your place here, what's the name? Canadian Embassy. Just here. People are sitting down. I mean, you go and there's someone with a Concordia and then the preacher preaching and praying for them that they get visas to go outside of the country. Now they are not coming for us. So we are going. So me, I'm not a fan of the money aspect of it.
So very first thing now, I think it's an admission that transatlantic slave trade was a crime against human money to one of the.
No, of course, that one is a crime. I mean, they must accept that, but and that end there.
But I wonder why you pick four leaders out of. Is it 54?
No, they are many. If I start mentioning Africa, they are the only person that is.
What transatlantic slave trade was about. How do you equate that to people sitting there going to look for visa? Do you understand what happened?
Mr. Pratt, but what is the difference between people going voluntarily and those that they came to?
I will show you the difference.
You will show me. This one, I want to know the difference.
This is Alhaji.
You have no understanding of
we would have been better off if we were bonded. Because now we are paying them to go.
Thank you. Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm says, good morning. Truth be told, I am so disappointed in this micro-minority group in Parliament. I will start listening to them in Parliament calling for inquiry into the killing of our tomatoes traders. What a shock. To make things worse, they also went ahead to say that it was all because the leader of Burkina Faso was in Ghana during the swearing of President Mahama, and for that matter, terrorists are now targeting Ghana. What childish talk! It is time we stop treating this micro group in with kid gloves. It seemed to me that we are over pampering them. For God's sake, our $21 million, which was supposed to be used to construct a dam for irrigation for farmers to produce tomatoes, has been spent recklessly. Mujib?
I am happy for one thing. It's like eventually the cry and the fight that we have engaged in for a very long time, long before some of us were born, and we also got educated at a point and continued the fight. It's now getting to the fact that they will even accept that the slave trade was actually a crime. I think that alone is an admission of a guilt. As for the other side of it, compensations or whatever, whether monetary or whatever, I don't think, for me, may come. But the important thing is, if somebody has committed a crime, to get the person to accept that indeed I've actually done it and I've accepted. That alone can appease. But if you want to see how important it is, look at the longer period it has taken for the West, the Europe and America and others to agree that this is actually a crime that we have perpetrated to these people in Africa. So it wasn't easy. Growing up, we saw learned people across Africa writing books, organizing forums, journalists, lawyers, got educated, talking about it, trying to get the world awareness. Even at a point, one writer described it as a scar of the conscience of the world by the the slave trade system. So to get them at a point in our history to accept that indeed we have accepted that we erred, what we did was wrong, even though at a point in life history was considered as a crime, but those who were involved didn't agree. But to get them to agree, I think that is very fundamental, and it's a very, very, very giant step in our fight against it. But as for the monetary and other considerations, so whether we like it or not, when it gets there, we'll find a way. We need for the monetary compensation to a large extent, because the underdevelopment of Africa is legendary. And it is not, we can't look at Europe and America today, and it's undisputable fact that they use our people and our resources to get where they are today. And one day themselves are aware. They use our people, steal our gold, steal our timber, steal our everything in the name of colonization and all those things to get to where they are. If we can find a way of getting some of them back to also develop, so at least wouldn't you be happy? We are fortunate the Deputy Roads and Highway Minister is here. You know, it's to get Accra to Kumasi, 4 here. Would you be happy? You see, I mean, money is money, and depending on how you use it to develop and get the people benefit of it, is very important. I hope you are getting. Other than this death trap that we have, you do know on weekly basis how many people accident we record on the Kumasi Accra Highway. So these are critical. We have just finished discussing about tomatoes. People travel from Ghana to Burkina to buy tomatoes and come and sell. So I think that when we get there, don't underrate it by thinking that, oh, maybe it will get there individuals, you mention names and other things. No, it goes beyond what you were thinking. And this is a very serious matter. And for me, SENA, I'm happy they have to accept, and they accepted that is a crime. So let's move on. The rest will fall in line as we move on as a people. But let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A few comments from those of you who join us on Facebook. Okay. There's somebody who says, I shall alert the minister on the panel that the way we present things to the public is bad. How many youth are aware of these dams and sites? Know that they are ready for production? that it should be advertised continuously. And also, this one says, we need visa-free to go and enjoy their economy. We must get scholarship for engineering, technology, and medicine. That's somebody's proposal on the matter of reparation. Of course, this one says, SENA, remember when the civil war in Liberia started? Rawlings and Abacha, okay, it took Rawlings and Abacha to organize soldiers to form from the two countries to form one united military group called ECOMOG. Yes, ECOMOG. I was trying to remember the name. There's also, the person started but I didn't complete it. There's someone is asking, why is someone not in jail by now? There's this one from James Kweku. I can see James Kweku, who says, please, is Uncle Kwesi encouraging military coup d'etat by saying which of the president of the sub-region, namely Benin and Cote d'Ivoire, tenure of office is democratically legal? Well, so that's from our YouTube page. Those who are watching us currently, Azuma Besori says, I'm enjoying your show this morning. I can't just listen without making a comment. One, listening to the former defense minister makes me laugh because he was speaking out of order. He just wanted to be heard in the news. Two, for saying that Captain Traore being hailed in Ghana during the swearing-in of former President John Mahama is a cause of the attack on our women in Burkina Faso is childish and provocative in our democracy. Three, that the former defense minister has insulted the youth of this country for expressing their support to a young leader of Burkina Faso who is trying to build strong ties with our country. It continues, but you know, that is how MPP propaganda works, just to confuse Ghanaians. But this time Ghanaians are more united. Finally, on the 24th February next week, Ghanaians and all progressives are invited to a mammoth gathering to make Ghana the day of shame. This is a sad day. This has brought our country backwards. We are finding it difficult to rebuild. This is the work of UP MPP tradition from Azuma Besori, who sent that.
This is the work of which one?
UP MPP tradition.
Party was to bring.
Not the foundation.
So would you see the proper UP so part of it?
To a very large extent, I agree with Uncle Chris's earlier interjection that it doesn't seem to me that Solo appreciates very much the issues at stake when we speak of reparation or when we speak of slavery in general. Sena, two things. I was in South Africa in 2010 during the World Cup, and the friend I was with noticed something when we went to the mall, and I went to confront one of the shop managers because something was not right. And this friend of mine who escorted me was South African. And when we stepped out, one of the things she acknowledged about Ghanaians was, since she started, interacting with Ghanaians during the World Cup, she's noticed our confidence. Because she and other South Africans perhaps wouldn't have been bold enough to confront, the way I did. And then what it brought to me at that time was perhaps the advantage is that we had independence earlier. And for a long time and through many generations, you had been conscientized to accept and embrace your identity compared to them. The second thing is a story that is often being told. I don't know if Uncle Kwesi will share it, but I heard it the last time when he launched his book, and President Mahama told that story. And said, even though it was an old story, it almost brought tears to my eyes. And these are not figment of people's imagination. These are things people went through. Sana, can you imagine even just when you were in your village, seeing a car for the first time? I've seen children when they see cars for the first time and they are going to be put in the car, they cry and they are kicking. So can you imagine such people were being watched by their parents to be auctioned? I have seen children when they take them to school, when the parents take them to school and they are leaving, they are kicking, they are crying. Even secondary school. So can you imagine such people? Their parents watch them being auctioned, taken through, the forest or wherever to the sea, and they were seeing the ship for the first time, and they had no resistance. And they had to even be carried in boats, in chains. SENA, you are talking about human beings. No wonder. Because we don't have time, I don't want to repeat all these stories. But I'm not surprised that the United Nations and the African Union have all agreed that slavery was a crime against humanity. A crime against humanity. And then we are not talking about just 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people. Conservative estimates have put the number of Africans at about 12 million people. 12 million people. There are some countries in Africa or even around the world without a population close to 12 million. 12 million plus people were chained through no fault of theirs, without their consent, and went through all sorts of humiliation to work as slaves to build these Western nations. And you see, when we speak of reparation, at least he agrees to that one, there must be that acknowledgement of that greatest sin committed against Africa. That acknowledgement, that recognition is a moral imperative. There must be that. And that is part of reparation, the reparation being sought. It's not just about money. We have not yet seen the West embrace that sin that was committed against Africa. They need to acknowledge it and apologize for it. And that is part of the reparation being sought. And there's the legal precedents. Remember I said that about 12 million, in fact 12 point something, 5 million plus, 12.6, thank you, people went through this ordeal. There's talk of the Holocaust. Yes. How many people were involved? And yet, reparation has been paid. There's the Japanese internment, where you are talking about only about 12,000 people that were confined in inhuman, and kind of imprisoned. 12,000 people. 12,000 Japanese, or people of Japanese descent. Reparation has been paid. And so why not 12.6 million Africans that went through worse forms of indignation? Why not Africans? And it seeks this, the movement, including President Mahama, which I must say, the move recently in Ethiopia was a brilliant one. We have the AU, and everybody now supporting him to move a resolution at the United Nations in support of what the Caribbeans have been doing over the years, as far as this reparation, question is concerned. And like I said, it is seeking acknowledgement and apology. It is seeking reparatory justice, not just cash, like I said, but compensations in other forms, like debt cancellation, development financing through health and education, and all of that are all things that we think can help restore the damage that their iniquities, created. There's restitution of cultural and artifacts as we speak today. In fact, the Western museums have more artifacts on Africa than the Africans can themselves. Why is that so? Why should that be tolerated? Even the return of such artifacts at least will turn the tide, where they will also queue at our embassies if they want to watch those artifacts. We don't have to queue at their embassies to go and see it in their museums. If they want to see it and it is in Africa, they'll queue at our embassies and come and watch it. That alone is restitution enough. And it is not just for us in Africa. It's even for those in the diaspora. And so it's not a question of, African leaders mismanaging what currently is under their control. It's beyond the current African leader and even future African leaders. This question of reparation is beyond them. It is about dismantling those systematic, racist structures that act, created. And maybe I should wrap up and allow Nkrusi to fill in what I may have left out of. But I agree to some extent with the issue of how it should be paid. For example, when it comes to compensations, when it comes to debt cancellation, when it comes to restitution of our health and educational infrastructure. Yes, the question of who should pay it, because the counter pushback may be that why are you exacting judgment or if you like compensation from the generation that didn't take part in it. Those are debates that are still out there. But as for the need for reparation, it is not debatable. The how, the when, who receives it, what it is used for are issues that I think we can debate further.
I think Solo agrees with everything.
Then you were not listening. That is why I was very surprised that Mr. Prater, you said, I understand, because exactly what you said, what I said.
So you agree with everything about who received it?
Listen, I said, and let me repeat again. I said that, yes.
No, but you said you didn't agree on monetary. You said monetary.
How did he conclude?
No, but
I said that in terms of the world, making the point that they committed a crime with the way they handled us, I agree. But and that is why I started by defining what reparation is. If someone is paying either money or giving you any assistance, I said they must hold on with the monetary aspect. That's why I mentioned the names of certain presidents. I was only giving you indication that these people cannot be trusted with money. And I also went ahead to even estimate. I say that what value would you place on what the crime that took place? For which we must pay us.
That is a question that I agree.
You understand? So whatever you said is my argument, but maybe you were looking at the angle that I said that people are even now rushing back to. Why would
I think we need a full list from you.
Yes. So you even said that.
Who you think should not?
A lot of them would know how to even come closer to this money.
Well, I'm struggling to find where to start from. But let me start on a very personal note. And that is to express a very special gratitude to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. He accepted to write the foreword to my book and personally launched the book. As we speak, the book has gained 5-star status on Amazon. In fact, 4 universities in Africa have decided that it is a compulsory reading material.
Congratulations.
And I don't think that it is just because of what I wrote. His own intellectual input has helped to propel this book to the levels it has reached. And I must express my very deep gratitude to President John Dramani Mahama for being a part of this work. You know, I've been looking for an opportunity to say this publicly. You understand? Not just that, as a result of this work that I did, with his inputs. Since then, I've been to every Heads of State summit of the AU. I've been to so many events around the world, and I've been offered positions again in 4 universities in Africa as you know, visiting lecturer and so on, you know. So I'm very grateful to him. And this has nothing to do with his presidency of Ghana or whatever. This is just somebody who agreed to give weight, to put a lot of weight on some work that I had done. So I'm grateful to President John Dramani Mahama. Now to the issues. And the first thing to say, the first most important thing to say, is that no amount of money can compensate for the crimes that have been committed against the African people. First, through the transatlantic slave trade, classical colonialism, and today's neocolonialism, no amount of money can pay for the damage which was done, for the atrocities which were committed, for the crimes against us. No amount of money can pay for that. So when we talk about reparation, we are not talking about the payment of money, and we are not talking about assistance from the perpetrators. What we are talking about is resetting the world. And everybody must understand that very clearly. And that's why I made the point that it doesn't appear that Solo has grasped the full gravity of what we are discussing. Reparation, as is politically and socially defined today, is resetting the world, not collecting money and not demanding assistance. The whole world needs to be reset so that the dignity of the African is restored, not by the perpetrators, but by the African himself and by institutions that we have collectively established after World War II. That's the point of reparation. You see, today, on this continent, well, in the world, today, there are 1.4 billion Africans. 1.4 billion Africans. Far bigger population than the United States of America. Far bigger population than Germany, than Britain, than France, than all of them. 1.4 billion Africans. And we have no say in anything. You go to the United Nations, we are only allowed to vote in the UN General Assembly, and the votes in the UN General Assembly don't count. We have no veto in the UN Security Council. Why? Suhini, why? It is because at the time the UN was being established and its agencies, the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank and so on, we were not at the table. We were then colonies. We had no votes. We had no voice. So they built supposedly global institutions to exclude us. That must change. That is part of reparation. The restructuring of the UN, the restructuring of the WTO, the restructuring of the IMF and the World Bank is reparation. So to think that reparation is about assistance and money is to miss the point. Because the whole world needs restructuring. You understand? And I can go on and on and on. Now, Suhini, oh, sorry. Again. Suhini, you always confuse me. Why do you do that to me all the time? SENA? Even when you are not here mentioning your name, what's wrong? But SENA, listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. The legal justification for slavery and by extension for colonialism was provided for by the Catholic Church. And the legal justification assumed or presumed African inferiority. It is captured in the papal bull issued by the Pope in 1452 to King Alfonso of Portugal. Read it, Google it, read it. The papal bull. It authorized King Alfonso to come to our part of the world to civilize us. So it already assumed superiority for the enslaver. It already assumed superiority for the European. They came to civilize us. And by civilization, they meant accepting Christianity. And the papal bull of 1452 actually ordered King Alfonso to kill us if we resisted Christianity. Kill us. To seize our properties, take us into slavery, and take over our wives if we resisted Christianity. This is the crime which was committed against us. So Uni talks about a conservative estimate of 12.6 million people who were taken into slavery. But do the maths. The estimate also says that 3 times that number or more were killed in order to get the 12.6 million. To be able to get 12.6 million slaves to go and sell, they killed 3 times that number in the wars of enslavement. Just imagine. You understand? Now, it doesn't end there. The transatlantic slave trade and colonialism destroyed our science. Today, our science is at this level because of what they did to us. And I was talking about a story which President John Dramani Mahama told. He told 2 stories. I don't know which one he was referring to. The story of the African woman from Elimina, here, Elimina, whose only crime was that she had used an African balm prepared by African herbalists to cure a scratch on her hand. She was captured, tried in the castle, subsequently taken to Portugal to be tried again for witchcraft. So if you use African medicine, it was described as witchcraft, for which you could be convicted. Is this not a destruction of African science? That's one story. The other story is of a South African woman. When they came here, they saw the bodies of our women. And they thought that the bodies of our women were much more different from the bodies of their wives and children and so on. Because our women were endowed in the rear. They had interesting backsides. Okay? So they captured this South African woman, put her in a glass cage, and exhibited her across Europe. They hadn't seen that kind of a woman before, with that kind of endowment, beautiful endowment, you know, and so on. They put her in a cage and exhibited her. The woman was so maltreated that then she committed suicide. She committed suicide. You see, if you look at the 12.6 million people who were taken out of our continent, they didn't take the sick. They didn't take old men and women. They didn't take illiterates. They didn't take imbeciles. They took the best of our population. Our architects, our doctors, our engineers, our rulers, and so on. That's what they took to Europe. You understand? To the extent that the development of science in Europe benefited tremendously from the stealing of African science. And I'll give you one example. I didn't know until recently. When COVID-19 broke out, and there was this discussion about vaccines and the efficacy of vaccines and so on, it turned out that vaccine was introduced in the United States of America by an African slave from West Africa. This whole thing about vaccine was developed in West Africa, and it got transported to the United States of America. Today, how many African countries are producing vaccines? They killed that technology. You understand? Which is vital for the survival of humankind. It came from here. Nobody has paid one penny, $1 for that technology which is African. Nobody. So when he spoke about something, African artifacts on displays in museums and so on. Yes, what he said is true, but it's more than that. Today, if you visit the museums in the so-called civilized countries, Britain, Germany, France, and so on, there are some items on display that we don't talk about. Those items are the heads of our heroes. Those who resisted them, those who resisted the slavery, those who resisted colonialism were killed. They were beheaded, and their heads were taken to their capitals for display. What kind of civilization displays human heads? What kind of civilization displays human heads and so on? I mean, Mujib was talking about, oh, maybe they shouldn't pay us money and so on. What we need scholarship to study. To study what?
Somebody said that message.
Those scholarships are largely responsible for our underdevelopment today. And I will explain. You see, we are constantly being taught by them that if we want to develop, we should adopt their models of development. That's what they teach us all the time. All your professors and so on who end up in Harvard, who end up in Oxford, and so on. Why? They mess up with their brains. They teach them that the only way for Africa to develop is to adopt their models of development. What is their model of development? Their model of development is based on slavery and colonial exploitation. Britain could not have become what it is today if it hadn't been for slave labor and the stealing of African resources. Okay? So how do you adopt the British model of development? Who are you going to capture as slaves to come and work for you for hundreds of years without pay if you are going to adopt the British model of development? Which countries in the world are you going to colonize to be able to steal their resources for your benefit? That option of development is not available to us. So our education must change. We need a new education which rejects those models of development, because those models of development are impossible for us. We need to change. Okay? So if you want classes to go and study those kind of rubbish, those models of development, we ain't going nowhere. You understand? We are stuck here. Yes, it is true. There are horrible African heads of states. Really horrible. African heads of states who have betrayed us, who continue to betray us. I still cannot believe that Côte d'Ivoire, after independence, its first president was a citizen of France. Once he was still president of la Côte d'Ivoire, he was a citizen of France. Not just that, he was a member of the French Parliament. The president of la Côte d'Ivoire was a member of the French Parliament. What rubbish is that? But that was a reality. So you are right. Some of our leaders have betrayed us. Those of our leaders who conspired with the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America to overthrow Nkrumah are some of those who betrayed us, who betrayed our interests, who continued the work of the slave traders, and so on. You understand? I agree with you to that extent. But the conduct of those leaders does not in any way invalidate the demand for reparation. Because why? Listen, there is no institution in the West which is doing well, which is not a beneficiary of the exploitation of the African people. No institution in the world. You see, I like to talk about Barclays Bank, one of the huge financial institutions of the West and so on. What is the origin of the wealth of Barclays Bank and its survival until today? Barclays Bank was established by two brothers known as the Barclay brothers. Do you know how they accumulated the surpluses which led to the establishment of Barclays Bank? They were slave traders. The Barclay brothers were slave traders. Barclays Bank was established with slave resources. So today, we as Africans are entitled to that wealth, which is Barclays Bank. We're entitled to it. Our forebears worked without pay in order to create Barclays Bank. What other institution can you mention which is not a direct beneficiary of our exploitation and of our enslavement and so on? Yes, you're right. When you go to the Western embassies and you see long queues of people struggling to go there and so on, it is the result of slavery. It is the result of colonialism and so on. But it is in no way the equivalent of slavery. It cannot be. They killed our people. They shot them in the Congo. Do you know what happened in the Congo? The Congo was the personal property of King Leopold of Belgium. The Congo was an exception. It was a personal property of King Leopold. The whole of Congo was seen as a rubber plantation. That is how King Leopold made his money, from rubber. So the Congolese people were required to supply a certain quantity of rubber within a certain period. If you fail to provide that quantity of rubber, they amputated one hand. Amputated one hand for not supplying the quantity of rubber that King Leopold wanted. If you repeated the crime a second time and the crime was not supplying enough rubber for King Leopold, they cut off the other hand. Amputation. Amputation. Look at what they did in Kenya to the Mau Mau movement. The slaughter. The concentration camp that they built, like a Nazi concentration camp in Kenya. How they fought. And I've had the privilege of speaking to Field Marshal Matumba, a woman general of the Mau Mau movement. And her story would make you cry. What they did to them, the torture, the atrocities and so on. Put that aside. Today in Ghana, we are still grappling with the Boku and other chieftaincy crisis. What is the origin? The origin of those crises can be found in the so-called theory and practice of indirect rule. And they credit Lord Lugard, who was governor in Nigeria, as it's not true. If you read the proper historical account, if you read Dr. Don Atta's book, and with evidence and so on, you find that it was not Lord Lugard who came up with the idea of indirect rule. Indeed, it was his girlfriend, who was a journalist, who came up with the idea, but it's credited to Lord Lugard. That's another matter. You understand? But the point is that when they came here, some of our communities did not have chiefs. But they decided to rule through chiefs. So they decided to create chiefs and to impose chiefs on the communities by force. So, for example, in the Ga areas, there were no chiefs. The Gas were led by Wuloma, not chiefs. But they created paramountcies and so on. So is it that in Boku, there were Tindanas or Tindanis, whatever. And they created paramountcies. And we have continued to suffer as a result of these impositions on us. You understand? We continue to suffer as a result of these impositions on us. Worse still, the crime continues up to today. And I'm so happy about the text message which was sent by Azuma Besori, inviting all of us on Tuesday to join the observance of the Day of Shame. And I will be there. And I will urge every citizen who can to be there at the Day of Shame, to listen to the argument, to confront the material, and so on. Because it's important to expose these. Why? Today, as we sit here, some of our friends, from the Dankwa Buzia tradition and so on, are justifying the 1966 coup. It makes me feel like puking. How can you justify the 1966 coup? You can only do that if you are ignorant, if you don't know the facts. September 21, 1961, the British High Commissioner in Ghana, A.W. Snelling, sent a cable to his own government, asking them to speed up the overthrow of Nkrumah because he was making the African too politically conscious. The document is still there. It's in the declassified documents. It's in the book titled The Great Deception, How the CIA Overthrew Nkrumah. All these documents are available. If you don't read, it's your headache. But if you can't read, don't join the public discussion with your half-baked truths and lies. The British were clear that Nkrumah had to be overthrown because he was making the African politically too conscious. It's in the cable which was written by A.W. Snelling and sent to his home government. Don't tell us those cock and bull stories anymore. You understand? That was why Nkrumah was overthrown. The overthrow of Nkrumah has not just led to national regression. It has led to a near collapse of the African dream. The African dream of maintaining sovereignty, of building a new world in which the African will be respected. You understand? Now, listen. Do you know the extent to which they went? They blame Nkrumah for instituting a one-party state. What did they do after the 1966 coup? They banned political parties so that they can win elections and stay in power. What's the difference between that and a one-party state? Banning your opponents and declaring a one-party state. What's the difference? Tell me what the difference is. They complain about the Preventive Detention Act, but they brought about the Protective Custody Decree, which was almost word for word, like the Preventive Detention Act. You understand? So, look, if you begin to examine these matters, there's not enough time on a program like this to examine all the matters and all the issues and so on. But the point is, the fight for reparation is a necessary fight. And when I started reading, and looking for material and so on for my book, I came across something which struck me very deeply. It was that it had become an argument between Marxists and non-Marxists, between capitalists and socialists and so on, about whether or not we should have reparation. And I said, why are these people arguing about themselves? They are all speaking the same language. You can look at reparation as redistribution of surplus value in Marxist terms. Or you can even just look at reparation as redistribution of value, not surplus value, value. That's Marxist. Complete Marxist. People rendered labor and benefited zero from their labor. It's a question of redistribution, which is justified under Marxist, philosophy, literature, and so on. Okay? So I thought that it was possible to unite everybody around the concept and need for reparation. That is why I wrote the book. I've been struggling with other books. For 10 years, I have not been able to write, and so on. I'm still struggling. Every time I write a few paragraphs and I lose inspiration, I put it down. But when I started writing this book, I never for one moment lost inspiration. Because of the facts and how they impacted on me and so on. I finished it in no time. In months, this book was ready. I've been writing one book for 5 years. It's still lying on my desk. I'm not sufficiently inspired to finish it. But this book, just the information that you come across and the analysis you come across and so on, is so compelling. Look, one of the most significant things that happened at the last summit of African heads in Addis Ababa this month is the commitment of all 55 countries in the world to support President Mahama's initiative to table a resolution at the UN General Assembly which recognizes the transatlantic slave trade as a crime, as the worst crime against humanity. 55 African countries will put their weight behind that resolution. Not just that, there are now efforts for Africa to unite with the Caribbean, to CARICOM, for CARICOM to come on board in order to support that resolution. I am confident that next month, some earth-shaking decision will be taken in the UN General Assembly. And that earth-shaking decision will be a decision by CARICOM and the African Union to insist that the transatlantic slave trade is a crime, the worst crime, the worst, not just a crime, but the worst crime of humanity. And that we, the African people, on the continent and the diaspora, will continue this resistance against what they did to us. We will continue to fight until we have established justice. And establishing justice can only mean resetting the world. Resetting the world, restoring the pride and dignity of the African people, restoring the African hope, and so on. And so, let me tell you one thing before I end. This is just for you, my brother. Solo, can I finish? Can I finish? Okay.
So, in all these, at the point I was getting, do we as Africans need monetary consideration for this whole reparation, or we don't need it? Because
we are not asking.
Are we fighting for any financial consideration?
Financial consideration is a word, is a term I would never use.
So are we looking up to them to pay us any money?
It is not about them paying us.
Because you see, that is where
they have stolen our resources and we are taking back our resources. So they are not paying us. They are not doing us a favor.
The amputation that people suffered in Congo, what value in terms of monetary consideration are we going to put on it? That people were amputated. The General Matumba that gave you the account, her ordeal. What sort of monetary value would you place on her ordeal? That is very difficult. In terms of
I have told you from the beginning that no amount of money can pay for the atrocities.
Yes.
Listen, that no amount of money can pay for the atrocities. And what we need to do is to reset the world so that these atrocities would never again be visited on any people. That's the point I made. So you should understand it from that point of view. But why? Our wealth which was stolen, we will take it back. We are not asking them to pay us. We are not asking them to do a favor by giving us assistance. We are demanding our wealth. Have you seen the courage, the ceremonial courage of the Queen of England? It's gold, raw gold. Have you seen it? I'm sure all of you have seen the ceremonial courage of the Queen of England. All that gold came from Cape Coast. All that gold, which was used in the construction of that carriage, came from Cape Coast. It doesn't belong to them. One of the most insulting things they do, when we ask for the return of our artifacts and so on, they say, oh, we don't have museums which have reached their standard. And therefore, they are worried that when they return these artifacts, we will not be able to look after it well. Nonsense! You know why is this nonsense? Because some of these artifacts they stole are not meant for museums. They are part of our daily lives. You understand? The remains of the kings of Benin and so on were not meant for museums. They are meant to be kept in our palaces as symbols that link us to our ancestors. They are not museum materials. And they should stop telling us where to keep things that we produce. We produce our own things and you tell us how to keep them. And if we cannot meet your standards, we will not return them. And the most annoying part, when they are compelled to return some of the artifacts, they say they are returning them on loan. Boge, you are returning our own things to us on loan. Boge, well, what is that?
Thank you.
So these things, they are so annoying.
Thank you.
They're so annoying.
Well, if you just two comments. This one is Standard Bank was originally established solely to finance transatlantic slave trade. That's besides Barclays Bank. That's Reggie Abe who sends that one. I found something on the vaccination. I've forgotten what the person sent, but unfortunately, I'm not sure I can find it again. Some education. In fact, it reminded me of a practice that I grew up with in the Volta region. Where after you fall sick, they have a way of, they call it a tea. They cut you small and put some black. Yes. That is everywhere. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for making time to join us on the matter of all talk shows, Alhaji&Alhaji today. And of course, let me. Kukudi.
A lot. What do you mean? You are going around to talking and then saying whatever. You think we don't
the criminality under your administration that you I can't imagine why you going to discuss the cocoa water. You must be thanking them that we didn't discuss it.
We are way past our time, and of course, let me say.
You really also wanted to discuss cocoa.
No, he's happy to bring the cocoa.
No, he is happy that we didn't discuss it.
Who said that?
He is so happy.
I'm coming.
I watch you on TV3 and I have answers to
There
you.
is so much disinformation is unbelievable. And there's a historical context we have to build. You know what they did to Nkrumah with cocoa? The swollen shoot disease. It is one of the things that culminated in the 1960s coup. The politics they played with the swollen shoot disease. We will get time to discuss cocoa.
Well,
you must be happy.
Well, I like to every time to Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And a big thank you to the man who is sitting right by him, Alassane Suini, is Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. And of course, coming closer to me, Mujib Rahman is a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party. And to my immediate left is Solomon Owusu, who is also Director of Communications of the United Party. Let me say a happy birthday. This is one is coming from the Food and Drugs Authority. It says, today is the birthday of our favorite Maria Lovelace Johnson. Please wish her well for us. Happy birthday to Maria Lovelace Johnson, the Director of Regional Operations Directorate of the Food and Drugs Authority. A happy birthday to you. And a belated happy birthday to Mr. Chris Akume, who celebrated his birthday yesterday. I am SENA NOMBO. We'll see you same time next week with another edition of the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji&Alhaji. But do not miss the Day of Shame at the Socialist Movement of Ghana headquarters. we're discussing the overthrow of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the implications thereof. I saw somebody's writing, why won't you learn from China? The Chinese and everybody, when you look at them, it's Nkrumah's blueprints. So why won't you go back to Nkrumah? Why do we keep arguing over the same thing? People have used the same blueprint, have gotten to where they want to get to. We are going back to say we should study from them. Go back to your to where you started from. Anyway, we'll see you same time next week.
He has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.